Welcome to the Spike Camp podcast. Spike Camp is a free online community for hunters that support conservation. It's a great place to share stories and your experience with other hunters. As a member of Spike Camp, you get access to all of our hunting live streams, discussion channels, contests, hunter resources, and events that we host. Membership to Spike Camp is free. Our only ask is that you are a member of a hunting or conservation group before you register. Head over to spikecamp.com to join us. This episode of the Spike Camp podcast is brought to you in part by Alpine Riflecraft. Alpine Riflecraft is a Canadian firearms company that is redefining what an ultralight mountain hunting rifle should be. Their flagship product, the Zenith rifle, starts at 4.5 pounds and is the lightest carbon-barreled bolt action on the market today. Alpine Riflecraft rifles are 100% engineered, designed, and manufactured in Canada. To learn more, visit their website at alpineriflecraft.ca.
Welcome to Spike Camp, everybody. It's been a minute since we did a live stream. We're trying something a little different tonight. It's kind of our modified version of an open mic night. But really what we want to do is tap into our members, talk about the hunting season, talk about the successes, the wins, the losses, adventures, all that fun stuff. I'm hoping that we can do a few of these episodes if we get some interest from you guys. I know we've had a few of you reach out, and again, we just want to try and get everybody involved in the community. A couple housekeeping things. We have submitted all of the stories for the Women Hunt contest, story contest, to the Women Hunt team, and they are going to be they're in the process of deciding the winner of that contest. And I know, Blake, you've been working on the updating the leaderboard, getting all that stuff done so we can draw the Kafaru backpack. And then we also have to award the winner of the kids photo contest, or kids story contest, photo contest. So we're going to do that. And then one more announcement that we have, you probably saw it on our socials today. We've added the Frontiersman Gear team to our brand partnership. So Tanner has he's got to get his ad up. We're going to get his ad up on the hunting gear space, I think, and then we're going to be working with those guys going forward. Tanner has ran a series of Spike Camp Lynx blades for us with our logo and engraved or embossed on the blade itself. So we're going to be giving those away throughout the course of next year. And we're running one of them as the rewards program prize for the month of December. And then some really cool stuff we got going on in the new year. We have some pretty amazing prizes that we have to build contests around. Our good pal Don Lynham has generously donated yet again another custom rifle. This one I'll be showcasing it over the holidays here. We'll get some photos up and show you guys, but we're just building. We're going to build something as far as a contest. We're going to try and do something for Wild Sheep Society of BC with that donation. So details will be coming on that. And then the last thing I want to mention is we have a really cool prize coming from Bosveld Jacob Safaris. We have to build another contest around that, but that'll be tied into year end. So more details to come. So lots of cool stuff happening. So, hey, Eric, welcome to Spike Camp, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Just fighting the cold here.
You're up in Prince George, right?
Yeah. It's kind of hit and miss with the weather. We've had lots of snow, and then now it's warm and rainy and icy.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So you got a little snow on the ground then?
Yeah, we got like almost 75 centimeters 2 weekends ago, and now we're down probably about a foot left.
Yeah. Well, we need the snow, right? We need a little more than we had last year for sure.
Yeah, there's not very much moisture up here in the bush, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, right on, man. Thanks a bunch for jumping on tonight. This is kind of foreign territory for us doing the unscripted open mic here, but I noticed. I think everybody noticed you had quite the season. You had quite a few successful posts coming on the platform. So why don't
Yeah,
you?
we've been pretty busy this year.
Yeah, why don't you walk us through your seasons from start to finish?
Well, we started out with our sheep hunt there, which didn't really quite go as planned as most sheep hunts do. We ended up north of Fort St. John, Fort Nelson area. We hiked into our first bull. We tried to find like a little bit of a secret hidden way into a spot we were last year where we had success. And it's kind of bad weather, mix of torn boots and some tent issues. We were weathered in for, I don't know, I think it was almost 2.5 days, stuck in our tents, and we woke up to like 8 inches of snow. And so that kind of takes us to the day before opener. And we had a break in the weather, so me and my partner there, we decided to go take a look around. And when we woke up, we walked not even 200 yards from our tent. We seen 4 other tents. So the basin we were in wasn't very big, and our plan was to kind of distinguish the area and before we made the jump into the area we were in before. And when we seen 2 other guys hiking up the same basin, we're like, well, this is probably not the best idea here. Let's just kind of hightail out of here. So we were both in kind of already low spirits due to like boot issues and tent issues. So we ended up hiking back out to the truck on the day before opening. And we get to the truck and there's like 6 other trucks. We're boxed in, had to cut our own little road out through the willows because people just were being classic people off the highway.
No way.
And yeah, it sucks. So we pinned it over to another spot, fixed the tent, fixed the boots as good as we can with some of that flex seal you see on the commercials there. Slapped on your problems. Didn't work very good. Only lasted a couple hours.
So what was the boot problem? Was it your boots or your partner's?
I got Loas. I got like the Loa Tibets, and on the back they have like this little black spot that's like supposed to be used for like expanding your steps so it's more comfortable. And all the stitching like ripped out of there. So I had this, I don't know, 1.5-inch hole in the back of my boot. So I had to be very careful of what I was going into.
Yeah.
So it was a bit more cautious going in, but we ended up hiking all the way in on, or we hiked in that night to an old horse camp and we spent the night there. Next morning, we dried some gear out and decided, well, we may as well make our push into sheep country today. Like, doesn't matter what time we get there. If it's dark or it's 2 a.m, like, let's just make that push. So we're not losing any more days. And we ended up getting to our main camp spot by, I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. Had a little bit of time to do some glassing close by, set up camp, find some water. Little did we know again that someone had one of the vehicles that was parked in our other spot ended up hiking over the same ridge we wanted to come into to get to where we were. And they had got lucky on opening morning and they were packing the sheep out while we were setting up camp. And in the morning when we woke up and we went after a ram that we seen that was pretty close to legal, we ended up seeing the camp below our camp. So we were like, oh shit, this isn't very
Jesus.
This is like one story after another here. Yeah, like the year before we were in there for 10 days and we never seen a single person, not even a guide.
Wow.
So we ended up making a play on the sheep. The sheep ended up running off down through the valley. Just little did we know he was only bedded 75 yards on the other side of the cliff from us after sitting on him all day. And he was in a very playable spot. We made a move on him. And the guys that were packing the sheep out, they're doing their last trip. And they didn't know the sheep were there either. And they were hiking the horse trail and making noise as they were, The sheep ended up hightailing her into the country and unchaseable. So that was kind of our first little kick at the can there. And we ended up passing up a couple more legal rams that were 8 years old, but not quite what we really wanted. We kind of have like a 9-year or better rule with each other. Because then if you do accidentally miscount, you still got an 8-year-old, right?
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, the weather ended up turning out a lot better. We ended up meeting some guys from down south. Him and his son, they got weathered in on top of a mountain and ran out of water and food and ended up sharing camp with us for a night there. But we ended up coming out of our sheep hunt just with, some great memories and some more area learned, which is, not always a negative part. And that led into coming back for some more trail cam season. And as you guys see, I'm pretty big on trail cams here in
Yeah,
the
I saw
northern
that.
part of
Yeah.
BC. So between me and my 3 buddies, we run about 38 cameras, and it's a lot of work. It's almost a full-time job checking those and keeping the salt going, the batteries going. So we spent most of August doing that. We had a couple bulls that we actually had wanted to kill this year. And again, I got my nice bull last year, so I was last shooter this year, so I didn't mind calling it. It's kind of one of my favorite things to do, is to be involved with like the communication of the elk. We tried to videotape a lot more of our stuff this year with GoPros and stuff, just to kind of add a bit more of a challenge, I guess. And my good buddy Brendan there, so he was first up on the stick, and opening morning we ended up having 3 bulls going within like the first 5 minutes of shooting light. And we ended up chasing 2 of them because the one definitely sounded a lot smaller. And the bulls ended up bedding. We snuck in a bit closer, and I ended up calling them. The one bull ended up coming out of his bed, and we called him into 18 yards to my buddy. And he's a pretty good archer. He made a frontal shot, but it wasn't the best frontal shot. I mean, archery, you have deflections. It's, not at the end of the day, it's not excuses. We should all know our own equipment, but he made the shot. We had good blood. Tracked him for, I think, till like 10:30, 11 o'clock that night. Finally, it was too dark to keep going. We were seeing some pretty thick stuff. So we ended up getting some dogs in the next day. Dogs ended up finding where he bedded, and there wasn't much blood there. So we said, we'll back out of the area for a day or two, and we'll come back and look for ravens. Is kind of the only thing we can do. My buddy ended up saying, yeah, I'm done shooting for the year. Like, I'm not going to be a shooter for elk anymore. Like, move on to the next guy. So we spent 4 days in there and never ended up finding the bull. So we're assuming that he hit him high, because we checked his bow after, and his first pin was 20. So we thought, but we had in June had changed our first pins to 30 so we could get out a bit further. So he was about 13 inches high. So we figured hit him in the top of the neck, top of the shoulder. So we're pretty positive that the bull's still running around. But
so
we still have cameras out in that area.
Sorry, Eric. The frontal shot, do you think it went in, like, missed the windpipe
Yeah,
and
like,
stuff? And
I think he went up like, like up high on him. The blood was good, and that's what we thought. Like for the first 200 yards, it was good blood. But it just wasn't that bubbly blood that we were expecting. Like,
frothy, long blood. Yeah.
Yeah, and this kid, he can shoot like, a dime at 40 yards, no problem. Like he can stack arrows, which is pretty good. So it ended up kind of putting a sour on us. I actually didn't carry a weapon much this year at all for elk season, other than a couple of days, and I kind of regret it because I passed up a 6x5 chasing this other bull that we thought was a grizzly bear for the first couple times we encountered him. It's just one of those old bulls that when he bugles, it was like a growl. And we thought for sure it was a grizzly growling at us. And we were like, what the hell? Like, every time we bugle, this thing's like growling. Like, it's not showing itself. It's not raking. So finally we set up a bunch of cameras in the area, and sure as shit, this bull he was just an old, heavy, short bull, but he was really tall, like short tined, heavy. And we're like, this is a good bull. You can tell he's just this old bull. And we play with him for 4 or 5 days. And actually, I tried to get a good video of him fighting another bull at about 80 yards, but ended up getting busted by the same 5x6 that I passed up a couple days before. So I, counterintuitive there. Like, I almost should have shot the 5x6 because we could have had a cool footage. And my other buddy would have got a bull out of the deal. But
wow,
beggars can't be choosers at the end of the day.
Do you think he was, like you said, he was sort of short and stocky? Do you think he was regressing, like he was over his prime?
Yeah. You could see his body, like he had really swayed back, like his back was really dipped down. Just his overall characters was just old bull. Really, like, he didn't really want to commit too much to us. Like, he hung out with the more prime bull that he would always have the cows, and he just let us know every once in a while that, hey, I'm over here. And he'd always start off really raspy and growly, and we'd move in closer, and he'd start getting a bit more squealy on us. And the more he got worked up, but it seemed like this year, going into that spot, we probably hit it 4 or 5 days in a row. And I think the cows kind of started learning more about our actions and how we were moving in. So the bulls were all ready to play, but the cows were controlling the herd there. They'd pull them further and further away. And I mean, one day we ended up chasing 17 kilometers, and we're like, you know what? We're so far from the truck at this point. It's too warm by the time we get one down. If we do get one down, we'll just let them back out. And they ended up going back to the same spot almost every other day they were in there. So we're hoping next year, hopefully that old bull made it through and he'll be a big like another old warrior next year. Maybe the bull that had all the cows will be a bit bigger. I mean,
is it
the area we hunt
high pressure area or is it?
Yeah, so the area we hunt up here, it's we get a lot of people from out of town, but there's a lot of locals that hunt it. It's it's not too far, but
yeah,
there is some hidden spots still. Like, I mean, that bull I got last year there, we had him on camera for 4 years and we never hunted him once, knowing that no one else knew about him. No one else knew where he was because we had the in and out roads pretty much covered with cameras. We never had people on him, no vehicles. And he just lived there for all year round. And finally it was a year that he slipped up. And I mean, he's just shy of, what was he, 338, I think. So that's for PG, that's a good bull.
Yeah.
I mean, they say the elk here don't make it past 3.5 years old. So.
Well, there's so much pressure there, right? Like think about Prince George as a town, right? You go out, pull into the parking lot at the grocery store, and how many of those pickup trucks are owned by people that hunt?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Versus going into, Langley or whatever and doing the same thing. So I'm surprised. It's good to know. And that's one thing we talked about. I can't remember which guest we were talking about with, about elk hunting, but it's pretty cool how some elk just have this small pocket that they live in, and they understand pressure, and sometimes you get lucky and find one that's living a kilometer from a road and never leaves that spot very much, right? And survives.
Like we have areas here that you can go in the morning, and if you're not there by 2:00, there's 2 or 3 other pickups parked there.
Yeah.
And those areas, I mean, there is always a legal bull killed in those spots, but those legal bulls that are being killed aren't big bulls. They're young bulls. And the big bulls aren't hanging out there quite yet. Later on in the season, those areas, once everybody's kind of extinguished them and moved on, the bigger bulls seem to move in.
Yeah.
But what do you find here on Prince George? Even like we hunt from here to Fort St. John, right? Like, I think the promising thing is that we do have a 6-point season here. And then a lot of people from the lower mainland come up and say, like, you know what, I can go to Fort St. John where I can shoot a cow or a 3-point. My odds are a lot better. I'm just going to keep driving the extra couple hours, right?
Yeah.
So for us, we're kind of in like a bit of no man's land, but it's it is what it is at the end of the day, I guess. Like, I wish the elk population here I wish they have a better archery season, I guess, is what I would like to see. I'm a big advocate for that. So our elk season ended up a bit of on a negative note for us, but that's how it goes. I mean, not every year you're going to get an elk. Some guys in the piece, they get lucky. Some guys around Prince George, they get lucky. And then it kind of took us. I didn't really moose hunt this year much. Mostly just my kid at hockey, and we got a new baby that happened in July there, right, like 10 days before I went on my sheep hunt, which probably wasn't the best time to go, but I was happy my wife let me go on that. Which kind of brings us into deer season there, and which turned out to be a heck of a 4 days.
I'd say. Yeah,
we ended up, me and my son went up in October, and we have permission on this property, and there's about 5 sections there we hunt. And this year some guy was paying to play, I guess is how he put it, and the farmer wasn't letting anybody else hunt other than this guy, so it put a bit of a damper on our abilities there. So I had to work a bit more, so I told my buddies, I'll go up in October, I'll set some baits up around the property on the crown and some cameras, and we'll just camp up there. We won't drive back and forth from John. It's too much of a waste to not be guaranteed a deer, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up setting the cameras up, and that trip, actually, I told my son, I said, you know what, like that, because does were open. I said, Dad, I'll get a doe. I'll shoot a doe while we're up here so you can be a part of a kill this year. Because my big thing is keeping him interested, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's easier for me to take him if he's interested than not. So we ended up folding the tag on a doe, which is pretty good. And me and my buddies went up on, what was that, a long weekend, I think it was, November, weekend after. And yeah, I think so, something like that. And we ended up camping, and the weather was not the greatest. It was pretty cold. I mean, it's great for deer, but not great for sleeping in a wall tent.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
We ended up, I got my deer on the first day, which is pretty lucky. It's not quite the deer that I thought he was. We had a big 6x6 on camera. That was probably 170-inch whitetail. And when I seen this guy, when I see this guy running across the little meadow there, I was like, oh, that's got to be him. And he was a little far off. He was 410, I think he was. And it took me and my buddy both trying to yell at him to stop him. And he's just made that one mistake. And I hit him right behind the shoulder. And, I was like, yeah, I got the 6. And, well, he was a 6, but he was busted off on the one side, too. He wasn't the one we were looking for.
Still a good buck, though, man.
Yeah, he was still a good deer, and I was pretty happy. I mean, it was a fluke, right? Like, we were just out checking our cameras that night after setting the wall tent up. So, first day down, and my other buddies all showed up that night later on, and 2 of them had actually never shot a whitetail before, so it's kind of good for them to be up there. One was my sheep hunting buddy, Brendan, and my other buddy, Spencer. And Spencer's like, you know what? I don't care. Meat bucks. So him and my buddy Tristan, they got 2 smaller, like Phil 3 points, nothing major. And Brendan was holding out because he was going to stay for 7 days with me. And we ended up getting him a pretty heavy older buck too, nice Roman nose on him. And he was pretty happy with that. It was his first. He's like, this is my first year. He's like, I was expecting just to shoot a meat buck. He's like, I would have shot a spiker if I had to. But he's like, I'm tickled to pink getting this. So that kind of ended up finished off our season. We looked for mule deer up there, but again, it's pretty hard to find permission. Most of those big muleys are on private land, so
yeah, it's a little tough. So your buddies, are they all PG boys too, or some?
Yeah. I went through quite a few. It's hard to find like a good group of hunting partners, right? Like, you got to have the right people who are under the same set of rules and morals, and they want to have the same outcomes. So my group I have now, we're pretty tight. We can joke around. It's like sometimes if hunting's pretty slow, it can get pretty comical for us, and sometimes we may screw up sometimes because we're being too comical and not paying attention to everything that's going on. But
you got to remember, right? You're there for fun, right? That's the main thing. It's interesting. I'm gonna write like an article for discussion here about hunting partners, because it was just reflecting. I was flying back from Europe on the plane, and I was just thinking about the season and hunting partners and stuff. And it's hard enough to find one hunting partner, right? Let alone finding a group of guys. And I got lucky this year in that I pulled a whitetail tag for Saskatchewan for whitetail, and I haven't had a tag back there in 11 years. And that was, it's a group of guys. They're my wife's cousins. They're all the same age as me, a bunch of brothers. And then there's a bunch of buddies and ranchers. And our camp, when I was actively going back to Saskatchewan every year, we'd have anywhere from 8 to 15 people that at our camp in a week, and rotating in and out. And for the last 7-8 years, it's just been smaller groups of us. And I went back for this hunt, and it was an absolute blast. Like you said, like sometimes you forget you're hunting because you're having so much fun, right? You're laughing and bullshitting and having a good time. And kind of reminded me that's why we're there. So
and that's kind of like with our deer hunt this year. We've all said, like, it's a no pressure hunt. Like, we all don't really need the meat. Like, I still have elk left over and moose left over. So we said, like, we don't really need the meat. So next year we're planning on maybe taking our our fathers up with us, and maybe a couple other buddies, doing 2 wall tents. And I mean, just at night, and it's fun bullshitting around. Like, we ended up watching the fights there in camp. My buddy brought his Starlink, so we had fights going
Yeah.
on, and you know,
That's cool.
some of the jokes we got. Like, my friends they're big Kuyu guys, and so the first day there, I got my deer, and they were all like, "Oh man, we didn't see a single deer in the morning." I was like, "Oh, it's because you guys are wearing Kuyu. You got to wear Sitka." So my one buddy threw on a Sitka jacket there, and he ended up getting his deer.
There's one of your deer there. Please got
Yeah.
a picture. Yeah, that's hilarious. So now, you had was it your son that got a deer? Yeah, there's the picture. He was with you on that.
Yeah, so actually that deer there, my buddy Tyler, the one holding, he's the one who actually pulled the trigger on that.
Okay.
And he lives down in Vernon, and he was up for the weekend, and he's like, "Hey man, like, I want to go hunting this year. I haven't been out much at all." He's like, "I don't care about the meat. Like, you can have the meat. I just want to get out." I was like, "Okay, sure." He's like, "You can shoot, whatever." I was like, "Okay, sounds good." So we kind of went out to a really high pressure spot in Prince George, and it was pretty funny because, again, it was just, we were just bullshitting on the way in, joking with my kid, and we went to this one cup walk, and we drove in kind of like dummies, and we scared a bunch of deer. I'm like, "There's no way, there's no buck in here." So the next cup walk we drove up to, my buddy's like, "You know what, we should walk into these." So yeah, sure, but I don't care, like, whatever you guys want to do, I'm just here for the fun. So we started walking in, and there's tracks all over the road. I'm like, man, there's a bunch of deer in here right now. These are fresh. Like, it just snowed. Like, you can't really see in the picture there because it's already melted, but it was snowing when we first went out there.
Okay.
I'm like,
fresh.
these are fresh tracks. And then of course I see elk tracks. I'm kind of getting a little distracted, so I'm looking to see if there's elk out in the block. And my kid's like, "Dad, there's does." I'm like, "Holy shit!" I'm like, cool. So then we walk a bit further and start glassing slowly, paying a bit more attention now. And I see this buck, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a good buck." Like, I think he's only a 4x3. And I was like, because I was in a big buck contest up here in Prince George, so I was looking for something a bit special. And my buddy Tyler's like, "Well, do you want it?" I was like, no, you can have it if you want. I think it's only a 4x3. Like, it's a good buck, but I think it's only a 4x3. He's like, "Okay, sweet." So he starts getting a bit of buck fever there, so I have to almost pull the dad move. So I let him put his barrel on my shoulder so he can steady himself, and he ends up dropping the deer, and we walk up to it, and I'm like, "Oh man," I was like, "I might have screwed up. This is a pretty good deer." He had stickers all over that we couldn't quite see because he's in the willows.
Yeah.
So he ended up scoring, I think, 178, I think, is what he officially scored at and change.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the picture. So his right side, is he a 4 on the right, and then the left side's got all the junk on it? It's hard to tell.
I can't quite remember. I think on his right side he has 5, and then on his left side there he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the left.
Yeah,
the left side's crazy.
Yeah, and like, our thing was we're in a high pressure area. We're like, we must have seen probably 15 pickups that morning. And this is a spot in Prince George where everybody goes and shoots there, during any muley season. They'll shoot their 2-point buck and walk away with it and be happy. So we weren't really expecting much, and mine just to get the kid out, let him shoot some chickens there. But it ended up being a half decent deer, and he was pretty happy with it. He's only ever shot 2 mule deer, and they've both been pretty crazy bucks. Like, his one before that was a 193.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
So, Blake, go back to the other picture with the son, with the little guy in there. So how old is he, Eric?
My kid's 8, and then my buddy there, I think he's 26, something like that, 27.
So zoom into Eric's son, Blake, for a sec, if you can pinch that photo forward. I don't know if you can. Look at the smile on that kid's face. That's you got yourself a problem there, buddy. You've got yourself another hunting partner downrange.
Yeah. Well, like I told my wife, because I got my elk mounted there from last year, and I told her, I was like, it takes up quite a bit of space. I don't think I'll get another one mounted. And my kid says, "If I get a nice 6-point, you're getting it mounted for me." So I don't think I'll be shooter much once he gets his license there. I'll be on the calls and the packer, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm with you. I mean, half the fun, 3/4 of the fun at some point in your life becomes watching younger people or new hunters or other people
Yeah.
getting their stuff right. Like, I totally agree. So
Yeah. I picked him up one of those little rascals 22s there this year.
yeah, right
And
on.
he started plunking away at chickens this year like crazy. So he was like, it had him hooked. So I was like, oh, perfect. Like that's what it's all about right there. So
Yeah,
you can shoot any box of 22 shells. I don't care. Like you're having a blast. And even if we don't get anything that day, you being out in the bush with me now is exciting.
yeah, so much fun, man. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And
How'd you find
he can
the?
even call an elk.
Oh yeah, well that's
Yeah.
cool.
He screams into the bugle and it sounds like a bull bugle and it's pretty good.
That's awesome. Maybe he's calling for you. Oh, that's awesome. How'd you find the chicken population up your way this year? There were a lot of people had sort of mixed
uh,
opinions on it.
there's lots of spruce grouse,
Yeah,
but the rough grouse and even like in Fort St. John's sharptail, not many. So,
yeah,
which is good for my kid. Spruce grouse, they stand around a lot longer than a roughie. So,
yeah, a little dumber.
yeah. My lab wasn't too excited. I like when I was out by myself, I don't even think I shot a chicken this year by myself. Like it was with my kid and my lab. He was pretty upset because he'd be out with me and he'd see one or two on the road and he'd get all excited and I just keep driving. So,
Yeah, for sure. Hey, let's circle back to sheep hunting just for a couple minutes here.
Yep.
So you were talking about your rule with your sheep hunting partner on the 9-year-old. My question is, have you both shot rams already? You each have one?
no, so he shot one last year and we thought we counted 8, but he had a pretty sneaky false that actually the bios here in town were like, like it's a false, but if counting it out there, so he was 8 for sure, but he was just shy of full curl, but he was a heavier ram.
Okay.
We could have doubled up last year and we chose not to because we had a 36-kilometer pack out.
Holy cow.
And yeah, and I've hunted how many times I've been on sheep hunts now? I think 5 or 6 sheep hunts now myself.
Yeah.
And I just haven't had that one ram that I want. Or like, for me, I don't really care about score. I want something that's gonna be pretty and that's gonna be like a good representation of like a stone sheep. Whether he's got nice big broomed off, or he's got the full tipped out really wide. Like there's 2 sheep in this spot we went this year. Like we went back to this year that we wanted, and one we called Twister, and he was for sure 8 last year, and he was, I don't know, he's probably over 30 plus inches wide.
Wow.
And then there's another one we called, he was broomed off, and he was broomed at his thirds, and we could count 7 or 8 from his thirds, and he was broomed off just below his nose. So he was an older ram too, and they ended up making a slip on us last year. We had him within 600 yards of our camp for 4 days, and then opening day they were like 3 kilometers down and up in some shit we couldn't get to. So this other ram my buddy shot on opening day was a lot closer, and he was happy with what it was and worked out.
Right on. Yeah, you're like me. I'm still waiting for the ram. And I think I've been on eight hunts now. One successful one. Seen lots of legal ones, but for whatever reason haven't done it yet. But it's coming. Hopefully this year, next year. I guess we're not there yet.
That's my plan. We're kind of planning on doing a bit later one. We're thinking like end of August, start of September.
Yeah.
So maybe some of the bigger rams will move into this valley a bit more. That's what we've been told. So.
Did you you said last year you've done you're hunting hiking. So you said last year you had nobody in there, and this year you had tons of guys. Why do you think that's changed? I heard a lot of people say there seem to be a lot more guys off the highway this year in a lot of places.
I'm not too sure if it's just the guys don't want to pay the fees to fly in anymore.
So expensive.
Like I'm honestly not too sure. Like we drove the highway last year before we hiked in to see where everybody was camped or like parked at. And before we made our decision, and we had 2 spots last year we were going to go into, and when we parked, as we were getting our stuff ready, another vehicle pulled in, but they stayed a lot closer to the highway than where we went. I mean, we were 36 kilometers and over 3 mountains to get back to where we were. So a lot of people weren't pushing that far. And so the way we wanted to go this year would have cut us in half. We would have only had to go over one, maybe two mountains to get into there, but it was a really hairy pass we had to climb through. And we both looked at it this year and we're like, we have too much in life to like jeopardize a slip here, because on each side of us it's a couple 100-foot straight down drop, and it was windy. And these young guys, they did it. I mean, they gave them props. I don't know if they made it out. They made it in, but I don't know if they made it out. And they're from the lower mainland there. It was their first year in there, they said. So they heard it from a couple buddies about this area. So I'm assuming, like, there's social media does kind of, in a way, ruin things, but at the same time, it does a positive thing by promoting hunting, but it does ruin some spots.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things there. I mean, if you look at the cost of flights in today versus 5 or 6 years ago, it's ridiculous more money now than it was. So it's good, I guess, if you're willing to step up. There's a chance you might not have as much company in the backcountry. And then, of course, the hike-ins, anybody can do it, right? I mean, if you've got 2 feet and a heartbeat and some gas money, you're going to get there. But 36K is a long push, and that's not walking down a trail. That's bushwhacking and mountain climbing.
There's a bit of a horse trail there, but we lost it. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we're not people. I mean, I'm 210 pounds. Like, I mean, I play hockey and stuff, but I'm not the most fit person, and we don't pre-workout before trips. Like, we don't train much. We do a couple hikes, but most of it's just driven. We push each other. One of us gets tired, the next person takes the lead, and we got to try to keep up with that guy. And eventually, when you're in there, you're in there. Like, I find the hardest part of sheep hunting is getting in there.
Yeah,
because you could sit at camp and glass and see sheep. I mean, eventually a ram's gonna walk across that next basin or out in front of you. It's just depending if that's the ram you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, I had friends who went up into Tachoti this year, and they said there was more boats up there than they've ever seen before.
Yeah, it's busy.
And they spent 2 weeks and never seen a never seen a ram. So,
well, that's the crazy part. One of the many crazy parts of sheep hunting is it can just happen anytime, anywhere. You can get lucky from the highway, right? Spot them from the road. That happens.
Yeah. There's a guy from Fort Nelson. There's a guy from Fort Nelson a couple of years ago, shot him with a crossbow right before the provincial park, arrowed it right on the side of the highway, and he had a picture of it in his backyard with it full. Like, he didn't have to just load it in his truck, and away he went.
Yeah, that doesn't happen much with stone sheep riding in a pickup truck, full body.
No, not even close.
What about bears? Did you have any bear encounters up there when you were hiking?
Yeah, we ended up having, on the way out, we had one grizz encounter. No, it was on the way in, we had one grizz encounter, and he seen us, we seen him. He came down the avalanche chute into the thick buckbrush that was over our head, and we dropped our packs and we just waited and were listening, and we probably did the stupid thing by being quiet about it, but we after a few seconds we're like, why are you not making noise? So we ended up turning a couple podcasts on, actually one of the Wild Sheep podcasts, and blared that off our phones, and you could hear him running around, rustling around down below us, but he never ended up coming within 50 yards of us. I think was probably the furthest he went, or closest he came, and then he just slipped out. I think maybe he picked up our wind.
So Kyle and Greg scared that bear off for you then.
Yeah.
That's good. You'll have to thank him. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was good times.
Well, right on, man. Appreciate you coming on tonight. That's awesome. Also, we really appreciate your support on Spike Camp. You're posting stuff on there, and we're only as good as the members and the content they put on. And I'm gonna reach out to you after, and once the postal strike's over, I'm gonna send you a box of Spike Camp swag for doing this. I appreciate it.
Sweet, cool, thanks.
And we're still on board for coffee or a beer when we pass through.
Yeah,
PBA.
definitely.
We'll be doing it a couple times.
Yeah, this year didn't quite line up. I was actually out in the middle chasing an elk today. You guys came through, so
Yeah.
we'll line her up for sure.
We'll get her next year, buddy.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks, Eric. We're going to jump to Jayden now. We appreciate everything, and good luck, man.
Yeah, Merry Christmas,
thanks,
guys.
Eric.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you too, bud. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. We got Jayden coming on next here.
Swapperoo here.
There he is. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, Jayden. You hear us all right?
Oops. You guys hear me?
How's the audio for you? Can you hear us?
Yeah, you bet.
Perfect. Right on.
I have to plug in my device. Hang on. I'm having a shitload of technical issues today, man. I had computer doing update. I had Wi-Fi going down. I had, everything right at 5 to 7. So
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic, exactly. So Jayden, man, we have not had you on yet. You and I have been talking since day one. You were one of our very first members of the platform. I've
been on for a minute here.
Early adapter. Thank you very much. Have we got him? I froze.
You're still there?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're coming back, Nathan.
Weird. But yeah, no, I've definitely been on for a minute, but yeah, I guess this is my first time on.
Now, I met your father because I bought a trailer off him in Kamloops. So
yeah, you put that to good use yet?
I haven't played around with it too much. Yeah, I'm going to use it around the lake quite a bit. I needed it actually to haul my firewood and stuff around, and then I've got a little inflatable that behind our lake is another small trout fishing lake, and you can't get a vehicle in there. And I wanted something I could throw my inflatable on, and that thing's cool because the sides come off it and it turns into a flat deck. It's a pretty cool little trailer, actually.
It's heavy as shit, but I got some pictures of that hauling some moose out. Like it can hold some weight.
Yeah, well, I would love to haul a moose with it, but I did something that pissed off somebody in Victoria like 30 or 40 years ago, and I don't think I'll ever get a draw tag for a moose. So unless that thing is going to go in the back end of a beaver and do a fly-in trip somewhere, I don't know if I'll ever get a moose on the back of it, but we'll hopefully one day. But yeah, I saw those pictures. Your dad was talking about that. It was pretty fun, eh? Oh
yeah, no, we've had some good memories moose hunting up until the draws, like you were saying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we get going, I was impressed with your dad gave me your background and your motivation and your drive to be a hunter. So maybe you could just tell everybody about how Jayden got into hunting, because it's kind of a neat story.
Yeah, I guess I started when I was like a little kid. My friend's dad was a conservation officer and take us out chicken hunting, when we were 7, 8. And then that progressed, and then a couple of my parents didn't hunt, just so we're clear. Dad or mom didn't. And then, but my mom's friend one was in fisheries, and the other one was a guide. So they just kind of took me under their wing as this little kid and took me out chicken hunting. And then I shot my first deer with them, second deer, and then I went out and I started getting my dad, and he'd take me out grouse hunting and chicken hunting, and then that kind of just progressed. Dad and I'd go deer hunting, like everybody does around Kamloops for the 2-point and open season. And then I went to university in Burnaby and only got out hunting a couple times, and then got into firefighting, forestry, and then went into structural. And I was just finishing up my structural training in Maple Ridge, living with my uncle, who's a huge hunter. And Fort St. John had a posting, and he's like, "You should apply because they have great hunting there." I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll give it a try." And next thing you know, I got the job and was kind of shocked because I'd never been north of Prince George at that point. Didn't even know where Fort St. John was on the map before applying, and then moved to Fort St. John and started hunting on my own. As everybody figuring out new areas and whatnot, how hard it can be, and then making good friends, getting some more success. My in-laws, who weren't hunters at the time, had a lot of insight through their connections of sleddings and jet boating stuff. And then it just kept growing and growing from just being, deer, moose, bear hunter in Kamloops to then big moose up here, then elk hunting, then stone sheep hunting, goat hunting, caribou. I mean, bison, you name it. Up here, it's pretty well. I've hunted it because it's just there's so many opportunities up here.
Mm-hmm. And not just hunting it, you've had success in hunting pretty much all of those things too, right? Between you and your buddies, right?
I've been very fortunate, like I'm saying, like I'm not going to try and toot my own horn, like, I'm God's gift to the hunting, because so much of it has been from help from other people, from mentors, whether it be a tidbit on a spot or let me help you about this. But yeah, I've definitely been very fortunate in success. I mean, I've got most of the species so far.
Yeah, no, it's been good. And I think the one thing that you touched on there too is, there is a community of people out there that will help you if you demonstrate that you're willing to give back either to hunting, conservation, or to the people themselves, right? If you're
absolutely
a good person, yeah.
One of my best friends now, it's kind of funny because the first sheep hunt I went on was a fly-in doll sheep hunt up north, and I got invited by my wife's friend's husband, and he just liked me. We hit it off, but his brother was just like hard ass. We don't take new people hunting. If he doesn't like this, what if he's not physically fit? And then we met, and we just like clicked like two peas in a pod, and have been best friends since, and been on most of our hunts together. And and since then, I've, like you guys are talking about hunting partners, I've been super fortunate that I've got probably 5 guys that like best friends now that will go on any hunt or whatever, and all super tight-lipped, won't say a word, but willing to help you pack out wherever you need. Like just good dudes that like, I want to go on a sheep hunt, they're in. They want to go on a caribou hunt, I'm in. They want somebody backpacking for them, or they get a draw somewhere. Like it's just got a really good group of guys, which is super fortunate.
Yeah, and that's, again, it sounds maybe a little tacky, but that was our goal here with Spike Camp, was to try to connect a lot of people, right? Turn it into a real community, and
it drives me mental, like on those Hunting BC Facebook page where somebody makes a comment like, hey, a little bit of looking for advice on this, or what do you think about this? And they just get ripped apart by people. Like maybe I'm a little biased because I started out as a non-hunter, or without a hunting mentor beside my parents. So it's like, I'm not going to go out and tell you where my hunting spot is or buddy's hunting spot, but like, I'll help the next guy out a little bit if I can. So it pisses me off when people just like rip new guys apart or looking. So yeah, I really like this whole Spike Camp community for that reason, that it's like, there's no dick swinging, there's no bullshitting. It's just people trying to help people out. So I really like that.
Yeah, and we say it all the time. Our growth on the platform has been slow and steady. I would say steady more than slow, but it's quality over quantity on the people side of things. And as long as we can keep that happening, we're doing our job, and the members are, like I said, we're only as good as the members, and people are willing to help and share. And I think a good example of that is the women hunt community that we brought on with the Wild Sheep Foundation in the last couple months, and just how welcome they are. Because, like, let's be honest, there's other platforms, and you touched on possibly one or two, that probably wouldn't welcome that community, and like our community has, right?
Well, totally. And like it was even cool, like I think Bradley Clifford, who's one of the women on there, and she's from Wyoming, and we had our own little messages here and there about Wyoming and people and stuff. And it's just cool because when would I have met somebody from Wyoming aside from people I already know to talk about hunting? So it's really cool.
Well, it's interesting. She's I've got her teed up as a guest in January for a live stream.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, she's a killer too. So
no, I've seen some of her pictures.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So speaking of that hunt, that's why I wanted to dig in. You just got back from a pretty cool adventure down south, which it's pretty unique. When I think about somebody doing an out of province, or not even out of province, I guess out of country international, if you want to call it, especially into the US, usually it's hunters that are my age, 50 plus, that have been applying for years, and you must have
Correct.
got the bug early. Yeah, you didn't just decide to do this last year, right? You've been planning this for a while and working on it, right?
Mm, yes and no. I mean,
Yeah.
in older, longer in the tooth gentlemen, yes, I would say they've been planning for it. Mine was definitely more of a last minute thing, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Well, let's hear
Um,
it. How'd you get it all set up?
Well, I've become, speaking of like we are talking about getting to know people and whatnot, about 4 years ago, I got introduced through the guy that was doll sheep hunting, another guy in town that moved from Wyoming. He's an eye doctor in Fort St. John and just got his, I don't even know if it's residency or how it works, but allowed to hunt in BC and wanted to go bear hunting. And he came over to the shop, the Kill Cave, and had some beer, and we started talking. And you're like, you know what? We'll do it. We'll do a May-long bear hunt trip. We'll head up north of Fort St. John and go kill some bears, kill some deer. And thinking that trip, we went up May-long. We saw like 64 bears in 3.5 days, and it was just like shopping for bears. Like really fun hunt, really laid back, a gentleman's hunt, and became this like super tight knit group of guys. So it was a lot of fun. Anyway, trying to cut that story down a little bit. He's from Wyoming, and he was telling us about how his brother and him have this good hunting spot, and that it takes Wyoming has a phenomenal way to hunt, where it's not just this Christmas lottery draw that we have in BC. It's like, as you said, building points year after year after year, and then figuring out which management unit you want to hunt, and then applying. And then after kind of the allotted years you need to get there, like in the area I went, I think it takes like anywhere from 8 to 13 years of points built up to get drawn as a non-resident. But that's from how I understand it. A lot of the states, specifically Wyoming. So anyway, he was kind of telling us like, oh, I've been building up points for however many years. I'm going to be drawn at some point. You guys should come down, come and ride some horses, carry some pistols, drink some whiskey, get the American experience with me and my brother. And we're like, hell yeah, like that sounds awesome.
Sign me up.
Down, we'll help you hunt. And to my knowledge anyway, so since then we've been putting in some points. I thought I'd been putting in elk points. Apparently I'd only ever been putting in antelope points, because in my mind I thought, well, I'll just come down and help you kill an elk and I'll go kill an antelope at some point. But Raleigh, because from Wyoming, can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think within the last 5 years they changed it that the majority of tags are still priority points, built up, but then like 5% of the tags are completely random. And sorry, I apologize if my voice sounds raspy. I also am just kind of getting over a bug.
No worries.
But so anyway, this last year when we were putting in for them, Josiah was like, my friend Josiah, who's from Wyoming, was like, put in your draw. Chances are you won't get it, but there's still a chance. Somebody's got to win 5% of tags. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And Wyoming does it different. That everybody that puts in to kind of show that you're putting some skin in the game or whatever, is they charge your credit card $1,000 Canadian or 700 US, whatever it is, and they hold on to that. And if you get drawn, they keep it. If you don't get drawn, it gets refunded. So May 16th or whatever it was, 5 a.m, my friend Josiah texts me and goes, results are out. I didn't get it. I was like, all right. And I roll over to bed, not expecting I was going to get it. I was actually saving up for some Zodiac or something. Then check my phone, and sure enough, I'm like, holy shit, I got drawn. And I screenshot it to him. And he said that he literally dropped his phone and like almost couldn't stand up, because we looked at the draw results and it was something like, I think they only gave out like 5 tags to non-residents. And of that, it was like, I want to say like around 300 to 1. I could be off a bit, but essentially like pretty difficult odds. And drawing tags has never really been my strong suit in the past. So I was pretty jacked, and also kind of like not really sure, what to expect, because so much of it was just kind of a big, like a pipe dream, right? But we were going to be heading down hunting for him. Now, so I got this tag.
So Jayden, so the draw that you got, was it a tag for a special management unit or zone? And like you said, you were like super low odds to get that tag, but did they have that for each, like a bunch of different areas, or was it all of Wyoming?
Just to kind of show like how like unplanned it was. Never been to Wyoming, never hunted it, right? So my friend Josiah was just like, apply for this unit, apply
Yeah.
for this egg, right? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like
Okay.
ultimately, I just thought I was gonna be coming down to help him pack an elk out and carry a, a Smith and Wesson 40 cal on my hip and just, have a good time.
Yeah.
But so I really like, yeah, you have to apply to a specific management unit. And as residents, you have a very high success rate. As a non-resident, you don't. And a resident of Wyoming, that is. Like, I think if you lived in,
Yeah.
I don't know, any other state, you're considered, I don't really know how that entirely works out. But essentially, if you live in Wyoming, your draws or odds are way higher, like almost guaranteed. But if you don't, then so that's how it was explained to me for the most part.
Sure. So then jackpot, you got the tag. And when
Yeah.
was this? It was July, you said?
May found out about this.
May. Okay.
Yeah, so then obviously the months planning of chatting with Josiah's brother, all of us figuring out holidays, when we were gonna go, because there's the seasons from October to November, but you can get like a permit to art bow hunt, I guess, in September. How we were gonna get in there and whatnot, if we were just gonna backpack, if we were gonna e-bike, if we were gonna horse, with all these things. And yeah, and then so ended up going that his brother, he'd been in there before and knew the area and knew it was a good area. And so yeah, figured out the time we wanted to go in November that worked for us, and rented some horses, and yeah, went in there, and it was a trip I'll never forget. Like, honestly, it was
Oh yeah, no doubt.
pretty unreal. Like,
Did
yeah,
you have
I-
experience with horses before this? Have you ever been on a horseback hunt?
No. I had everyone in my family, we owned ranches, and they sold them all the year I was born. I was born with bowed legs. I never got to ride a horse. So it was, but
Oh,
the other guys that I was with, they had. So
okay.
it wasn't like we were all just chickens with their head cut off. I was kind of the only one, but it was, by the end of it, I was a right cowboy. I knew what I was doing.
Oh yeah, I bet. And so this is a rifle hunt, I guess, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
that was the other thing, kind of taking a step back, is we were kind of like, we were like, should I bring my own gun, whatnot? And my friend Josiah, he's had a lot of issues with the border coming, because he goes back and forth to visit his family quite a few times. And he going back, I think I told you, on my sheep hunt this year, it got cut short because a couple deaths in the family, and my grandma died on the day one, but we kept pushing. And then Josiah, his dad, passed away on like day 5 unexpectedly, and he was a guy sheep hunting with. So anyway, he was telling me how he's driven back and forth to Wyoming for family things and funerals, and he's gotten searched and just treated like a criminal left and right. So he essentially said, rifle wise, he's like, my brothers and I have guns down there, just leave your guns here. Like, let's not worry about that headache. They're just going to treat us like criminals. Don't do it. And I was like, all right, like, whatever you think. And sure enough, both through there and back, no issues. Like, just none. It was super easy, super nice, which is nice.
So you just borrowed a rifle from them when you were down
Yeah,
there?
which hindsight's 2020. I like, it worked out well, but hindsight's 2020. I don't think I would do that again. Because on the first night as we were riding in, I mean, we're already seeing bulls everywhere. We got to this one spot, and a couple little bulls. So we got off the horse, and the next, bull that's probably 350 inches walks up, and we're like, okay, drop the packs, get on the gun. He hands me his gun, and then as he's like super last light, like, having to like almost use a light to adjust the dial on the turret, like getting that close to blast light, then a bull that we figure was 370, 380 came up, and is just 430 yards, just squared to us. And so I'm on 2 backpacks with a gun I've never used, a pretty far eye relief, and heart's just pounding, right? Like, I've never seen such a big bull in my life. And he's 430 yards, which is a pretty good shot. I mean, like, I've killed other animals at that distance, but with my gun that I'm used to, that I know how it shoots, with a bipod and a comfortable rest, not just kind of a quick get down on a pack gun you've never shot. So anyway, I was on it for like 30 seconds, but he only gave me like a 2-second turn as he turned to run, and I just didn't want to make that rushed shot, or a bad shot, I guess you should say, just because with all the factors, it didn't feel right. But
and it's day. You said this was day one as well, right?
Literally, yeah, the night. I mean,
right in
the very first morning when we went out to glass while we waited for the guys with the horses, we drove the truck to where we were glassing from and bumped a 310-inch bull elk 6x6 at 100 yards from the truck. And I was like, we should kill this one. We should kill this one. Then I was like, no, we said we weren't going to kill the first one. Like, there's going to be bigger ones. And Josiah's brother, we sent him a picture of a bull elk that had been killed in our area by a guy we know that was a 313-inch elk. It was a beautiful elk for up here, a nice elk. And he's like, oh yeah, we'll see like 30 of those. And I was like, kind of thinking he was like talking crazy, but he wasn't wrong. We probably saw 30 to 40 300+ inch elk over these 6 days we were in there. Like, it was unreal.
Jesus. Unbelievable.
But yeah, yeah. So anyway, didn't kill that one the first day, and then it was day 2 that I ended up killing mine. And mine obviously wasn't as big, but like, I mean, I kind of went into that hunt with the expectation that I wanted to kill a good representation of a Wyoming elk, something that I have a very difficult time killing in BC, and we definitely accomplished that goal.
Yeah, Blake's just pulled it up. And we've seen the pictures. It's beauty. So, walk us through the play-by-play on that hunt then.
Well, I'll have to send you guys videos, because I actually have videos of shooting the elk through the spotter of my friend and then me walking up to it. But play-by-play on that one is it was in the evening. We were taking the horses and kind of checking out these ravines as we were hiking around. And on almost every ravine, we're seeing shooters that up in BC that you'd kill without even a second thought in every ravine. It was crazy. And then we got to this one and saw this bull, saw another bull. And my friend Joel saw this one, but we didn't see it right away. And he's like, oh, there's a good one. Like, and we're kind of looking at it. 5 minutes go by, and then we see this one. He's like, oh, there's a good one. And Joel's like, yeah, that's what I was talking about. And the thing that's crazy is, like, we were looking through the spotters and stuff, and there was almost a point where we were gonna, like, we thought of passing him up, but like Josiah's brother was like, he's a little narrow, he's not super long beam, like, he's got good time length, but and I don't have a ton of experience with hunting big elk or scoring them at all. And when I say a ton of experience, hardly any. So I was like, oh, like, what do you think it scores? Just because, like, only way I can kind of reference a big elk to know what I'm looking at is kind of like by other guys that I know that have shot, a 335 or a 313 or what have you, right?
Yeah.
Just want to compare. And he's like, oh, it's probably like 320. And he was phenomenal. Like, he's like, well, what do you think? And I was like, kind of humming and hawing, and because, like, I didn't know. And I was like, you know what? We got an hour and a half of daylight. That's a beautiful elk. He's a good representation. Let's make it happen. If we can make it happen, I'll be super happy. If it doesn't work, we can keep going. And obviously, I've got the haunting image of the 370 bull in my memory from the night before. So part of me is like, oh, should we hold out? And he even said, he's like, like, I can't guarantee we'll see anything bigger than what we're looking at now again. Like, I know we just saw 370 last night, but I can't guarantee we'll see anything that big again. We might not see anything this big again. He's like, I'll leave that. It's your decision. And that's where I was like, you know what? I don't want to be greedy. I'll be super happy with this bull. And so anyway, it was 800 yards across the ravine. Two of us were able to sneak around and kind of crawl along the back end of the spine towards the ravine. And for anybody that hasn't been to Wyoming, it's crazy windy. Like, every single day was minimum 30-mile-an-hour winds up to 60-mile-an-hour winds. Like, not kilometers, but miles. So, like,
miles. That's insane.
Insanely windy. So we got to 400 yards and could see it. And Josiah's brother had a 338 Lapua that was shooting hand loads at 250 grains at 3,200 feet per second. So, like, a pretty pretty hefty bullet, like
Pretty
good
stout rifle, yeah.
Oh yeah, like it had one of those square block breaks that you see on like
Yeah.
the BMG 50 cals and stuff, like just Call of Duty stuff.
Insane.
And anyway, he asked me because like he knew that I'm a competent shooter, but he's like, do you think you could shoot it from here? And I was like, like with this crosswind, I was like, and not knowing this gun, I was like, I think we could sneak in a couple 100 yards closer. That would make me feel more confident. Because if it was my own gun, I'd still even be questioning with a 30-mile crosswind.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, we snuck into another couple 100 yards, and then sure enough, because of the way we're positioned, literally the sun was right in our eye. So we ended up having to wait another 10-15 minutes behind the knob, just waiting for the sun to go down. Other two guys are across the ravine with the spotter, so we could, and thankfully, I mean, one of the only times I've ever been hunting where there's been service, they were able to tell. We were like, hey, can you see it? Yeah, cool. So we knew it was still there. And then once the sun went down, we belly crawled through cactus and stuff. I had to pull cactus out of my knuckle till we got to 150 yards, and he was there. Didn't know, beautiful wind. And then once his head was up, so I wouldn't shoot an antler, I put one in him, and it went, right into the boiler room. But I think it expanded a bit or hit a rib and shrapnel. Then it popped one of his vertebrae up, and he dropped and rolled and didn't move.
The 338 Lapua is a beast.
Oh
That's
man,
crazy.
I want one so bad.
They're out there. What kind of bullet was it? Accubon?
I honestly can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember. I honestly think it might have actually been like a target load for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, probably a match bullet of some sort.
Yeah,
But
something like that. But like because he didn't do the reloading, his friend did or something like that. But yeah, man, like I completely I had my ear hearing protection in my toque, and I was belly crawling in, but I got so excited, obviously seeing this thing, that I was like, forgot to put it in. This brake has all the ports pulling back at you, and just ears ringing after.
So loud. Oh my god.
But man, it was pretty sweet. And then obviously walking up to this thing, it was just wasn't ground shrinkage, it was ground growth that were like, okay, this is bigger than we thought it was. So it was
wow. No, congratulations, buddy. That's just, I remember when you sent me the picture, the first one, I both fell over. It's such an impressive bull.
I mean, I've never really been one to get emotional on a hunt, like when I've taken an animal, and I told my wife this and she kind of made fun of me for it, but I got a little emotional on this one because it was just like a dream hunt, everything about it, international horseback in the Wild West, it felt like, and then to get an animal that I realistically won't get a caliber like that in BC. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's fairly unlikely. But yeah, I got a little bit emotional, which is the first time it's happened for me, and I mean, I've seen other guys do it, so it's kind of a cool experience.
So shoulder mount coming?
Yeah, there is. I mean, wife's not too happy about that, but that's the plan. But unfortunately, in my house, there's no room in my house. Like it won't fit in the house. But thankfully, I've got the shop in here that it'll fit. So
yeah, I have a taxidermy problem myself that's going to start showing up about February. That's going to turn into a real estate problem too.
Oh yeah, well, real estate or marital problems. It's usually one of the two.
Yeah, or both.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So then, are you getting the mount done down south, or are you doing it up here?
Up here. No, I was able to actually. I got the bull. I don't know if I can really see it. It's right there.
Oh yeah. Whoa, sweet. You got a
That's awesome.
year old while you wait. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, well, that was for anybody that's listening that's planning on doing an international hunt. The border agency is off. And I mean, Chuck, I know you've done a couple international hunts, so you can probably touch on this, but I emailed and phone called both Canada Border Agency, and they told me I needed, as far as the meat and the skull, I needed to contact Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and I got passed around back and forth.
They don't know.
And
they
it was
don't
like
know.
phone call, email, it's their agency. And I was losing my mind to the point where I actually reached out to Joe Appel. I've got to know him over the last couple of years because we play football together with a few different similar guys in a small world,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously hunting. So I reached out to him and asked him what the deal was, and pretty much everybody else was like, take the meat out of the bones or bones out of the meat, and if you clean the skull, and you shouldn't have issues, and your carcass coupon, your permit, your tag is your export import tag. And that was the best answer I'd gotten, but I could not get an official answer from anybody. And it's like they didn't know and were afraid to give me an answer. And then on the way back, so I tend to answer your question, I Euroed it myself down there, like I cleaned it. I brought, because I kind of do Euros as like a side gig up here or whatever. So I brought my elk pot and my burner, and then just went to a car wash after and did it there. But just because they don't want the brain or the cord or spinal cord in there for the CWD.
Yeah.
And then, but bringing stuff back, like the guy at the border he like literally looked at the elk and was like, what were you guys doing down there? And we're like, hunting, because we had like all 3 guys in one truck, literally coolers, crates, a cargo net, and the elk piled right at the top. And it's like, what were you doing down there? And we kind of like looked at him like, hunting, like. And,
this guy,
he really didn't ask for anything else. Didn't ask for permits. Didn't ask me. He just cared about, did we have any guns? Did we have any drugs or alcohol? And how much money we spent.
Yeah.
It was super easy.
Yeah.
I'm wishing I threw a couple ARs under my truck, under my seatbelt. I'll tell you that.
Well, you could. Then Justin would just find him and send him to the Ukraine.
It's true. Yeah. No, it was a different world down there. We went to this Murdoch's, like a supply store or whatever, to get some gifts for our wives and stuff. And it was like the back wall was just ARs and pistols, and buy this 1911 pistol, get a free semi-automatic shotgun. And it's just like, why do I live in Canada?
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad you got the meat and everything home. And it is. I will say this: it is intimidating when you're trying to sort out all those details because it's so important.
Totally.
You know, like you show up there and you don't want to lose that elk. You certainly don't want to lose the meat or anything. But yeah, and
that was exactly it. Because where we were 8 hours from the border where his brother lived. So all of a sudden, drive 8 hours and they say you can't take the stuff, the meat or the cape or the skull back. It's like, well, what do you do? Can I throw it in a storage container? Like, you can't really just do that with a cooler and come back in a couple weeks. So, but thankfully, no issues. Yeah, we got all the meat back, processed in the freezer. The cape, there's a really good taxidermist area, world renowned, Nooksuk Wildlife Studios. He does phenomenal sheep. He's become a buddy of mine over the last few years, and I reached out to him and was asking if there's any way we could make it work. And so I was able to get my my cape. He's taking care of my cape, and then he's pretty backed up right now because he's got a lot on the go. But once he's got some time freed, he's gonna fit me into his schedule because I really like his work, and he's done my sheep and goat mounts and knocked it out of the park with the habitat, the rock work, and really wanted to do it. So probably won't see my elk shoulder mounted for a couple of years, but it's all right.
No, it'll just be that much better when you get it.
Exactly. So. And I mean, I've got the Euro on the wall for right now, so can't complain.
Yeah. That's cool. Wow, man. Yeah, so happy for you, buddy. And when you told me you were doing that trip and you were posting on Spike Camp and getting, people making comments, everybody was pretty excited. And like I said, when I saw the picture the first time, I was like, oh yeah, right on. So
my
how did you like? Go ahead. Sorry. So your wife?
I was going to say, my wife always makes fun of me because there's been a few once-in-a-lifetime experiences. But when I told her I got this draw, she just rolled her eyes and looked at me and goes, oh, another once-in-a-lifetime hunt? And I was like, yeah, it is. But this, out of all the hunts I've done, this probably is the most once-in-a-lifetime hunt that I've done.
Yeah, for sure. So cool. So let's talk a little bit about sheep hunting because everybody wants to talk about sheep hunting. We got a couple minutes left at least, Blake, before we're gonna get one more guest on tonight. So I think we got enough time, but I'd like to hear about your success, your first sheep hunt where you got your ram.
Okay.
Maybe tell us a little bit about that hunt.
Sure. Yeah, my sheep hunt, like a lot of people, started off with an addiction, right? I mean, you go on one sheep hunt, then you're just the hook set deep. Because my first sheep hunt was the doll hunt, wasn't for me, and I just got addicted. That was for doll. My first stone sheep was the year after that. I'd made plans to go with my one friend Joel, I went on this elk hunt with, and then my wife's cousin, who's a guide, because of COVID, wasn't going guiding in the Northwest Territories, and asked me if I wanted to do an impromptu sheep hunt with him, and didn't have a kid at the time. Pretty easy to get time off work, so I said, yeah, let's do it. Said he'd already killed the stone sheep, and his kind of thing was, he's like, you know what, we'll go for me, but if there's something I don't want to see and it's legal, you can have it. I was like, yeah, sure, I'm just happy to go at hunts, and I'll Sherpa you. And yeah, we went, and it was a pretty intense hunt. We took his Zodiac on some pretty big water where you'll see many Zodiacs. You'll see a lot of big boats, not a lot of Zodiacs with a prop. Maybe some oversight there, but almost drowned, or almost sunk the Zodiac twice, flipped it once, almost flipped it once.
Oh, jeez.
And got into an area that if you looked on a map, you wouldn't think there'd be sheep there. Sure enough, we found sheep after a pretty excruciating hike in. It was a pretty big pull. Yeah, it took us almost a day and a half to get to the summit of this mountain where we're at. And at the very end of the night, or right as we got there, kind of last light, we pulled out the binoculars, and sure enough, found a band of rams right away. And from where we were looking, we knew that one was probably legal, maybe two. And but this is from a few kilometers away. So set up camp, decided we were going to spend the night where we were and try and find some water and make a way around. And it was kind of where we spotted them, was kind of this shitty knoll that really only had one way to approach. The other were pretty cliffed out. So we kind of had to do this big candy cane around to get to them. And it worked out pretty well. That's how, as we looped around, it took us the better part of a day to get there. I mean, we saw more sheep along the way, but nothing is what we were looking for. And had to side slope some pretty sketchy stuff that made my stomach feel pukey, and got into 500 yards of them, confirmed that the one I shot was 9 and legal, and the other one was 7 and can't remember if he was just over the nose or just under, but was 7, so we wasn't even an option. And then we then it was super windy, so we decided we weren't going to make a play. Didn't want to take a shot at 500, or he didn't, because we were at this point still hunting for my wife's cousin, because he hadn't confirmed if it was the one he wanted or not. And then the next day we got into position where we thought they were, waited all day. They didn't show up, so the last couple hours of the light, we decided we were going to kind of move toward them, because we figured they were actually kind of down in the timber on the edge of this knoll. And sure enough, we were right, or he was right. I was really leaning into his knowledge at this point, considering this is my first stone sheep hunt and second sheep hunt at the time. And so we were going in again, super windy, and we found them. We took off our packs and kind of propped them up, and so we could get a better look. And a gust of wind took my pack, and I thought my pack was going for a few kilometers down the mountain, because we were on a pretty steep incline. And thankfully got caught up on some buckbrush, but that was enough noise that it made all the rams stand up, and which worked to our advantage, because we could see where the rams were, but couldn't figure out where they were because they were feeding or which one to switch. But they all popped their heads up, and sure enough, we're like, all right, that one's legal. And I'm kind of hiding behind this rock because they were kind of looking in our general area. And once we were only 200 yards away, and once we determined which one was the one that was legal and that, yeah, we wanted it, I popped up and shot it, and down he went, and in some pretty gnarly stuff, and like timber rams, bush rams at that point, yeah, that was my first ram, or
awesome.
My only ram at this point, I guess. Passed on a few since.
And now you go with guys every year, and you're still. What's the ideal ram for your next ram? Or are you more concerned about getting someone else their ram?
It seems I kind of laugh because it seems like almost every hunt I've been on, for the most part, I've been hunting for somebody else for sheep, which I don't really care. And it's kind of funny because I was the backup guy when I killed mine. But so it seems the last how many years that I've been sheep hunting, it's kind of been for somebody else. I do have my one friend Joel who had already killed his ram. His first ram was 44 inches, I think, and so he's always like he was trying to get me mine, but I just happened to get mine with somebody else. Dream ram for me, I mean, I don't really know if I think I'll know it when I see it. Like either
that's what everyone says.
like heavy and broomed, long and twisty, old or different. Like it just kind of it's got to be all those things, right? Like I don't want to shoot a 7-year-old. I don't want to shoot another one that's just kind of around the nose. Like I want it to be flared. I want
Special,
it to be or special. Like we took out my friend Cam for his first ram in 2022, and we got him one. I think I posted it on here a couple of years ago. I think in 2022, and it was an 11-year-old tipped out over the nose, but then like a fist of a horn on the other side that had busted.
Yeah, wild looking sheep. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, just something different. I mean, last year, ironically, I was kind of chuckling because this season, I guess, because my sheep hunt was kind of like shoot, I'm forgetting his name. Like it was just on. Anyway,
Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Lots of people bumping into people, having the outfitter buzz us with his plane, having the guide and his client come up right behind us and bump a band around from us. Like just kind of thought things weren't lining up for us. And then obviously my friend's dad passing. So it wasn't
one of those years.
It wasn't a good year. So I kind of chuckled because I'm in the same thing where next year we probably are gonna do a fly-in, but we're gonna do it September because we're like we don't want to deal with that again.
With all the people,
Because same thing. I went into that area 2 years ago, and with our friend Cam who killed his ram, and you didn't see a soul for 10 days. But then this year we saw 4 or 5 different groups in 5 days. Like it was, and the outfitter and the plane buzzing us. It's like I don't go hunting to be running into people left, right, and center. So
yeah, exactly. It's not a community party.
no.
Well, you made up for it with your elk, buddy, and super proud of you, super happy for you. And
it was a good year for the freezer, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you very much, man. We appreciate having you on, and we'll get you back on again, and we'll chat some more. And I'm going to send you some swag too again once Canada Post, if they ever figure out their contract and their negotiations. So I think we're gonna jump. We got one more guest. We're gonna try and squeeze in for a chat here. Blake, you got Brian teed up.
Yeah, I'm just inviting Brian. But yeah, Jayden, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Take care. Thanks a lot, Jayden. All right, see you later.
If nothing else, if we don't have any takers, we can always either wrap up or you can tell us about your trip you were just on, Dad.
Sure. Well, I wrote a story about it. So I did a Spanish Ibex hunt in southern Spain over the last couple of weeks. So I combined it with a business trip into Amsterdam and a small vacation with my wife in Spain and Portugal. So the Ibex, very cool. So for those of you that have not done a Spanish hunt, I highly recommend you do it. So Spain has 4 species of Ibex. They have the Grados, the Basidi, the Ronda, I think I'm saying that, Ronda, and the Southeastern. And so it's been interesting. I learned a lot about the wildlife situation in Spain. In Spain, the government looks at the wildlife as their property. The government owns the animals, and for the most part, you can hunt anywhere if you have a license, because the wildlife regulations supersede property rights. So if you are a farmer and I guess, yeah, produce or animal farmer, and you have property that has wildlife on it, the government can just come in with a government agent in tow with a hunter and take an animal off your property. With you really have no control over it. And I didn't realize that. Well, anyway, we spoke to an outfitter. I hunted with Ibex Hunt Spain. I got connected with them through Alex Sharif, who was on our international camp last year. He connected me with his friend Valeriano, who runs that operation. And he's been guiding for close to 40 years in Spain and also in Asia for all the different mountain species over there. So anyway, wanted to try and figure out a species to hunt, one of the Ibex. As I was about to mention, one of the species, the Bacidi, has been plagued with scabies, the little parasite, and it's virtually wiped out the population to the point where they haven't stopped hunting them, but it's very difficult to find them. And now apparently it's jumping over to the Ronde Ibex a bit as well. So they've got their issues over there. So the population for the southeastern and the Grados is doing really well. And I decided to do this hunt. So the plan was a 4-day hunt. We flew into Madrid and then connected over to Granada in the south. And the territory is about, the plan was to pick me up in Granada, and we drive about 2.5 hours into a small little area, a little town called Vicar, which is it's right on the ocean. Beautiful, just absolutely beautiful scenery. We it was an interesting, I guess, an interesting hunt in that I didn't really know what to expect. I was told we would be hunting the government land, which is basically like crown land. I was told we would have government agent, wildlife manager with us, along with a guide, at least one guide, and that this official would accompany us for the entire hunt. When I arrived, the outfitter told me that the guide that we were using is also an agent for the government as well, so he could act as that wildlife agent. So that was kind of cool. So this guide and his buddy, who's also a guide, they had been spotting and sort of working an area looking for ibex within about an hour of this little town. So they had found a few different pockets of ibex in the mountains, and I was just trying to compare the landscape. It reminded me a lot of the Fraser River area, where we have our own bighorn population. So not necessarily Churn Creek, but some of the desert area there. So we were basically, the plan was we would drive up into the mountains on these ancient roads that had been around. They were previously trails dating back 500 plus years. The countryside was originally used as agricultural farming land for, I guess, for people back 500 years ago, when I think it was Muslim controlled area. And they had these crazy, like beautiful, hard to describe, but almost like brick retaining walls, rock retaining walls. These little plots were made, and yeah, there's some photos on my post. That's a castle we were glassing from. We parked in front of this castle, and we were glassing the mountain that you see in the background, and then back sort of behind me when I took the photo. So that was a first. And this little castle is 20 minutes out of Vicar. But these little plots, yeah, right there. So if you see the bricks, basically what they do is they built these little plots, and the intent there was that they would hold the ground from erosion, and they would also trap moisture. So each of these little plots, the farmer at the time, again, 500 plus years ago, he would have his own little staked out area, The families would live in like little encampments up on top of the mountain, but these was their basically their farm, and they would farm actual grain like wheat and some other edible grains that they would mill into flour and make food and sell. So that was pretty cool. And the hillsides were just loaded with those plots. So anyway, we get there the first night, first afternoon. They get me checked into the hotel, and we go out glassing. And there was a little bit of confusion between the outfitter and I on my start date and end date. So it ended up, I had another commitment I had to stick with towards the end of the hunt. So I only had 2 to 2.5 days max. So we decided to make the most of the first night, and we went out to the area where these guys were spotting ibex. And this particular mountain here, if you see the cliffs up in the back there, there's a bunch of ibex in this photo, a bunch of females with young ones and a couple of small billies. But the rut was just starting to really get into high gear. And basically what the guides told me was there's several groups of females. Pretty much every mountain has a little group of females. So it's not all that different than sheep hunting, where you have the nurseries that we see. You see all the bands of ewes and lambs. They have sort of the same thing. And what happens is the billies will travel once the rut starts. They travel from mountain to mountain looking for the females that are coming ready for action. And so the guides had spotted 2 big billies in the general area. And when I say general area, the area that I was hunting in, they had a permit to hunt this area, which is 17 I can't think of 17,000 acres. It's whatever, hectares. However, 17 kilometers by 17 kilometers, whatever that conversion works out to. So basically a 20 square kilometer radius was the area that we were hunting in. And they had spotted a couple of billies that they knew of that were really good. And so we went up, we were glassing from the truck, up into the mountains, and it was starting to get late. Now, the intent of this trip was we were going to do a little glassing and then drive up into the backcountry, and I was going to fire the outfitter's rifle and test fire it. And in this case, it was a Sauer bolt-action rifle, chambered in 7x64 Brennecke, which is the identical twin to a 280 Remington. Beautiful scope. It had a Leopold VX3 on top with a turret on it, and the guy was a hand loader shooting Nosler Accubon. So I was, okay, this will be great. While we were glassing, we actually turned up a couple of billies that came over the top of the mountain above us, and the guide started to get excited. Now, this is where it gets complicated. The outfitter was with me, and then the guide, who was the guide/agent, and his friend, who's also a guide. Those 2 guys didn't speak any English. It was just Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish. But there's some definite hand signals that are universal in the hunting world, like getting excited and jumping around, waving their arms. These guys got very excited and said, we've got one of the big billies just popped over top. And so I think we had maybe about an hour left of shootable daylight, legal light, so to speak. And the wind was not good, and there was about 15 or 20 smaller ibex and nannies and a couple small billies between us and this big guy who was at the top. So we had to wait for the animals to move or the wind to switch. And right at the last possible second, the wind, both things happened. The animals started to move, but the wind switched and the thermals started to do their thing. And as soon as the thermals started, the ibex started to move up the mountain. So we grabbed the guide. Basically, we grabbed the rifle and a backpack, and we started hiking up through those farming plots that Blake pulled up. And when we first spotted the billy, he was 500 plus yards up, and I wasn't prepared to take a shot beyond 300 or 400 yards, very max, probably 300, given that I'd never fired the guy's rifle. So I wouldn't normally do this, but before we took off up the hill, I grabbed the guy's rifle, opened up the magazine, like pulled the bolt, cycled it, and I said, "Look, if we're going to shoot, if I'm going to, the first time I'm going to shoot your gun is at an animal. At least I want to know what the trigger's doing." So while they were getting their jackets and shit organized, I dry fired this gun a couple times, and the outfitter told me it's a 2.5 pound trigger pull, which is pretty much what I have on my rifle. So I said, okay, well, we'll see how it goes here. It was a long shot as far as whether we would pull off this actual stock or not, because these things were already 3/4 of the way up the top. So we go racing up the mountain, and we get up on one of these rock benches, and we peek kind of up and through the grass. And I had brought my range finding binos with me, and I was able to range the tips of the horns of this big billy at 200 some odd yards, 210 or something like that, not very far. And he started to kind of walk and move around. Outfitter dialed his CDS turret to 200, and he said, there he is, if you get a clear shot. So I kind of dropped down on one knee, on my left knee, and I was leaning. My angle of my shot was literally like that. I don't know what the degree is, but it was one of the steepest shots I've ever made. And I just had to wait for the other goats to get out of the way. And this billy was milling back and forth like any male animal would be in the rut. The girls are moving. He doesn't know which way he's going to go. And then finally he turned and was kind of walking on a slight quartering away angle. And I just basically put the crosshairs center mass on his body as he was quartering away, and touched off a shot. And all I saw was the tips of his horns flipping over backwards, and he fell down onto one of those farming plots. So my shot entered kind of right behind the short ribs and went straight up through the thoracic cavity, and took out both lungs and piled them up in one shot. So I don't know if you want to pull up the photo. I think I have so that's the Ibex. He was 10.5 years old and was one of the 2 billies that they had been hoping they would see throughout the season. What was really impressive about the Ibex, I wish I had photos of the other ones, because what they told me is as the southeastern Ibex grows older, the certain stripes amongst his body get black and really black. And once you start to see black on their belly and the front of their back leg, that black sort of just expands and gets a little more profound. So is there a picture of him laying on the ground, Blake? Did I have that in there as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That shows, yeah. So as you can see, like the chest and neck and mane, under his chin and stuff all have black. And the other thing we noticed, they're not a huge animal, certainly smaller than our goats, but very, very cool animal. He smells like a goat, I'll tell you that. So we shot this thing, quickly did our photos while we had some light, dragged it down to the truck, and literally put it in the back seat on the luggage compartment of a Toyota Land Cruiser with 4 guys in it, and then off to town. And they had to do an official measurement similar to what you would do for like Boone and Crockett or something like that, where you measure certain measurements on the circumference and length. So they did all of that. They had to take photos of it, and they actually had to use WhatsApp and send all the details to the I guess the game warden district manager of that area. So anyway, super cool hunt. Part of me wishes it was longer than 4 hours, given that I went halfway around the world for it, but it was great. We ended up
hard to pass up that Ibex though, eh? That's a good one, I would think, right? On the scale of them.
It is, yeah. So they use this, I guess, the SCI scoring system, and they use a metal kind of like bronze, silver, gold. So this is a high silver, which would be, he described it to me. He said, that would be kind of like your Boone and Crockett entry level for other animals kind of score. So I don't know. I mean, I take that with a grain of salt. I really didn't care. I just looked at the mount, the horn. It's going to be a beautiful mount. I'm going to do a half body mount on that one. So again, that's the taxidermy problem. But yeah, if anybody has any questions about hunting in Spain, please reach out. Feel free. When am I getting the mount back? So good question, Wyatt. The outfitter runs the season until, I think he said March. I probably won't even get I'm going to get the mount done here in BC, but I won't see the cape or the horns until the summertime before they can ship it. And then I got to get it to the taxidermist. So I'm a year and a half, probably, at least, maybe 2 years.
Was there a wait list for getting that on that hunt? I don't think there was, right?
There wasn't. There was only there was, in this particular area, there's only 2 hunts. Like, he was only going to take 2 ibex out, and he had an archery hunter coming in after me, and that guy has, I guess, I don't know who he is, but he's from the US, and he's got his North American Grand Slam with a rifle and with a bow, and he's on his 3rd rotation of the Grand Slam. And this guy just hunts. He's retired, lots of money. He was coming in, and he's been on 4 ibex hunts, and he's turned down, I think he told me he's turned down 8 or 9 ibex, and this was one that he wanted to shoot. They had been watching. So sorry, Bal, I got you the ibex for him. So yeah, so no wait list, but the outfitter manages his territory very well. He's very careful about it, and I don't think there's a real big resident hunt. They do a lot of culling, I know that, so that's where the residents get opportunities, is taking out younger ones and females and stuff. So yeah. Was there any other questions?
I don't see any other questions. We're touching on time, so we can probably work our way towards the end here. I think maybe an idea for a show down the road is you and I could go through our hunting seasons a bit, because we've got, it was a decent year. We got a few things and lots of different hunts that we could probably talk about.
We've got a lot of episodes. We bring Ed on. We had some interesting times on our hunts this year. We had a lot of highs. We had a few lows. We had some crazy shit happen. So that's a great idea, Blake. We should do that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think we will wrap it up. Thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Again, we went a little freestyle. Brian, we'll get you on. We're going to do, we'll get you on for a full live stream on your own. Lots to talk about. So appreciate everybody. Thank you very much. And if we don't do another live stream podcast before Christmas, happy holidays to everybody. And we'll see you in the new year. Thank you.